Hey, this is Matt once again. Welcome back to another video, and this is a paid request for Durst Moms and for Life. Thank you so much for that. And for those interested in requesting any type of videos, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal. Do have a Cash App as well. PayPal is usually the best way to do it. It could be any tier list, ranking, review, re-review, commentary, video game playthrough for an hour, a full playthrough, reaction, whatever the case. I'll get to as soon as I can. Links are down below in the info box. And for this video, he wanted me to talk about You Might Be the Killer from 2018, directed by Brett Simmons, not Simon, Simmons, with two M's. Now, Brett Simmons, I looked up his filmography, and I recognize a couple of the titles. He did a film from 2011 called Husk, which I've heard of, because I think it's based on a short film he did. And then he did a film called Animal, which I remember not being big on. I remember the thing with that film was Joy Lauren Adams was in it. I'm like, man, I haven't seen her in a while, from Chasing Amy and Mallrats she was in. Used to go out with Kevin Smith for a bit. I was like, oh, nice to see her again in the movie. But I think the practical effects were decent, but just the story and stuff just kind of meh. It's a 4.7 out of 10. This one gets a 5.9, which I think is a fair rating. And he really hasn't done much since, other than a few episodes of a TV show called Pandora, which has a 4.3. So not the most highly praised show, I guess. But since then, that's really all he's done, is a couple episodes of a show. And You Might Be the Killer, maybe they were going for something that they thought was going to be maybe a bit of a bigger cult hit, at least. But it's a film that most who watch this video, either you've never heard of the film, or you haven't seen the film, or maybe you saw the film and it's okay. Now, I've seen this film once before, a while ago, so it was interesting to rewatch it again, and my feelings are pretty much the same. That was just okay. It's trying to be a vibe of an 80s slasher film. The plot has interesting elements to it. And I thought the two lead performances were fairly good. It has a couple of decent bits of gore. So overall it's okay, but my issue with the film, before I get into the plot... Well, actually, maybe I should get into the plot to see what the hell this movie's about. So it stars Kranz, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. He was the stoner dude in Cabin in the Woods. He is a camp counselor, and he wakes up from a blackout, and he's covered in blood. He doesn't know what's going on. Well, he knows a little bit of what's going on, to be fair. And he calls his friend, who works at this, it seems like a comic book shop, but maybe a movie shop as well. It seems like it sells a variety of things. And the worker is Alyson Hannigan. Where I remember Alyson Hannigan, she was on Buffy the Vampire Slayer as Willow. She was in American Pie, about the flute, and will later deal with Jason Biggs. Oh, I was at band camp once, and I did this with a flute. But I always liked Alyson Hannigan. I always thought she was cute. I liked her vibe as an actress. And I liked her in the movie. Must have been a pretty easy gig, because she's in one place the whole time talking on the phone. She literally did phone in her performance, because the entire time she's on the damn phone. And she's kind of, I would say, playing Jamie Kennedy from Scream, that type of character, where she's telling the rules, making the pop culture references about slasher films. And that's her whole role. I wish she was able to get in on the action, get her hands dirty, become part of the events, but it is what it is. So she plays the character Chuck, while the guy plays the character Sam. So again, Sam's covered in blood, calls her, and a lot of those scenes together, like I said, I think the two actors do a good job going back and forth. Some of the dialogue can be funny. Like, for example, she says, okay, when you say ugly, do you mean Freddie ugly or Matt Cordell ugly? And he's like, what? Maniac Cop, man. So some of that was kind of funny. Or someone goes, why did he kill Freddie and Nancy? Freddie and Nancy reference to Nightmare on Elm Street. And as you just say, there's a killer on the loose. Killing people. And like I said, some of the gore is decent. One guy gets both his arms cut off. Granted, some of his cutaways, so it's not as bloody as maybe you would want or hope for. It's not as gory as you would hope for. But there's one pretty good bit where someone gets hit in the head and the head goes like this. Opens up like a watermelon. That I would say is the best effect of the movie. You know, one person gets decapitated. Maybe once in a while there's a touch up with CG, but you know, decent amount of a little bit more practical as well. The thing with it, I know people have liked this part of the movie. The way it's structured, I was not a fan of. The way it's structured is trying to be like Pulp Fiction, which I think works in that movie, where the timeline is all over the place. Imagine going from A to B, cutting up, and then this part's here, and then this part's here, then this part's here, and this part we see again. So sometimes it seems like we see the same scene 2 or 3 times or so throughout the film. And the way it does, and keeping us in tune of where we are in the timeline, it shows a kill count, which I thought was clever at first. At this point, only 4 people are dead. But at this point, 8 people are dead. Well, at this point, only 2 people are dead. And it's to show, okay, this is where we are in the timeline. That's clever to an extent, but when it keeps doing that, it kind of get a bit repetitive. The charm kind of wore off, and the reason it's doing that is because the guy has blackouts, and the more he remembers, I remember this, I remember that, then we see a flashback, then we're at the present, then we're over here. It's just, some people will appreciate that because they feel it's a different way of doing a slasher film and makes it seem a bit more unique. To me, it's kind of, especially when you're ahead of the curve of the mystery. And I'm going to spoil right here. The title gives away who the killer is. I know it says you might be the killer, but I don't know. I remember when I first saw it, I went, well, I know the title says you might be the killer, but I'm like, you're probably the killer. I'd be surprised if you weren't the killer. And lo and behold, he is the killer. He's blood all himself, he's got blackouts, and with the kind of movie he's trying to be, where he's trying to flip the script a little bit at times, I'm like, okay, yeah, and that's what it is. And the reason that happens is because of a cursed mask. And at one point there's a legend told about this mask, and it just found pretty easily. Seems like someone would have found that mask a lot fucking sooner. And the mask, it looks, you know what it looks like? Remember the mask with Jim Carrey? Remember the way the mask looked before he put it on? That's what it looks like. Wood, like made of wood, made of bark. That's what it looks like. And it possesses you. And I don't mind the way the weapon looked, because it was like machete, but it looked like there was a little bit of a bone stretcher on it as well. Granted, maybe it's the copy I saw. Sometimes it was a bit dark to see at times. Maybe it was the copy I saw. I don't know. But sometimes I don't think the lighting was up to par that it could have been. At least for me. And then it's kind of rinse and repeat where the guy's confused and he's trying to remember stuff. And he's talking to her and she's trying to give rules. And then sometimes I go, with these rules, who the fuck made up these rules of a slasher film? Because I'm like, there's a lot of other slasher films that don't follow these rules. Like, one of the rules supposedly is a pure soul needs to survive. So I guess if you don't drink, sex equals death, that type of thing. And like maybe that, but at the same time, I mean, didn't Adrian King smoke dope and play strip Monopoly or something in the first Friday the 13th? Well, I guess maybe that's why she died in the second one. I guess that maybe I'd let go, but I'm like, I don't know. Maybe the one that bothered me more was they act as if only one person could survive. I'm like, there's plenty of slasher films where more than one person survived. Friday the 13th, well, depending on how you think about part 2. But Friday the 13th part 4, multiple people survived. Part 5, multiple people survived. Part 6, more than one survived. Part 7, more than one survived. Part 8, more than one survived. Part 9, more than one survived. Part 10, more than one survived. The remake, depending on how you look at the ending, more than one survived. My Bloody Valentine, more than one survived. Technically, Halloween, the kids and her and Donald Pleasant survived. So, there's a lot of film. I mean, I don't know. Because the thing that happens is that this just was fucking... I get what they're trying to do, but two girls, they hear this and they take it verbatim as if the God told them themselves, you need to do this or else. So they start trying to kill the other. Or at least one starts trying to kill the other in order to be the sole survivor. And I'm sitting there going, well, you really think if you kill someone, you don't be still a pure soul? Like, if you buy it so much that you don't try to kill someone else so you could be the lone survivor, if you think that's true, don't you think the pure soul thing is true too? Because if you're going out on a limb to murder someone, do you think this magical rules are true? What about the other rule you're breaking? Because I think murdering someone will not make you a pure soul anymore. So, you say just characters being dumb. And that's another thing, is that the other characters... There's like one lady who's an ex-girlfriend of the lead guy, Sam. You don't know anything about the characters. You don't really give a rat's ass about the characters. You don't really give a shit about the characters. The characters, they mean nothing. They do nothing. It just... I kind of... When you start the way it does and people have died and all this other stuff, and then, oh, well, when you go backwards, you already know some of these people are going to die, so you already know where their future is. And I just don't really like any of the other characters. I don't think they did a good job really establishing these other characters. Alyson Hannigan, I mean, you can't really say she's a character. She's just being in the store, which I'd love to know that job. To be on a fucking phone the whole fucking day, not worry about working, and your boss don't have to bug you. Because she was on the phone a lot. And I don't remember the boss bugging her a whole lot about it. That may be the most unrealistic part of the movie. If you're on the phone that goddamn long, trust me, someone's going to come up and go, do that after work, goddammit, or you're fired. I just think the script could have done a few more passes because I would say the first half was more interesting than the second half. Like the initial response and the initial incident where he's covered in blood and you're a little bit intrigued what's happening. But then again, I kind of figured pretty quickly that, spoiler, he's the killer. And then we're told he's the killer. And the last I got was Alyson Hannigan's reaction. Like when she says, "Oh, you chopped his head off? Or you chopped his head in half? Why?" Although, considering what she's being told, she handles it pretty well. Like, people are murdered, people are dying. This good friend of yours, he may be a killer. You seem to be taking it fairly well, considering. But like I said, the two leads are good, but they only go so far. Because like I said, I think just the way it was structured really bothered me. And the ending. The ending really, any somewhat satisfaction I was getting it, kind of diluted by the end. Because what happens is, he's trying to fight the curse of the mask. One thing leads to another. The last surviving girl, she gets the mask. It possesses her. She stabs and kills Sam. She walks away with the mask. So I guess she's going to be a killer. She's going to go kill some people. She's going to do whatever. Then it cuts to, I don't know how much longer late. Was it a year later or some months later? Or two? I can't remember. Alyson Hannigan gets a phone call and says, "Hey, it's Sam." And she's like, almost like ready to smile. And then it cuts to a graphic going, "One undead counselor." And I'm sitting there going, what the fuck is this about? Why is he undead now? I guess if they did a sequel, they were going to answer that. But is he undead because, oh, killers never stay dead, but that was because of the mask. But the mask is long gone. The lady took it. Does something else make him undead? Or the other people don't be undead? So I guess there was an intention to maybe get a sequel, since they had a sequel-bait ending. But I'm assuming this film did not do well. Because you didn't hear anybody talk about it at then, let alone nowadays. Again, I just think the script petered out in the second half. It kind of just rinse and repeat. Remember something? I killed this person. Remember something? Yeah, I killed this person. And just, I thought the laughs got less and less. Even the references seemed less and less interesting. The plot just kind of petered out. I think this would have worked better as like a short film. I do. I think this would have worked better as a short film than a full-length film. The ending was not satisfying to me. Alyson Hannigan being stuck in a store. It's like I've kind of wanted to do more stuff, be more involved with the story. And the way it's structured, where I was like, I'm trying to pay attention. Okay, this is when two only people died, so that hasn't happened yet, but this has happened yet. Okay, now we're in this part. Okay, now we're about to this part. It just, that took me out of it. Yes, films like Memento, films like Pulp Fiction can work on that. I don't think this needed that. And again, I think the script, to make it more interesting, surprising third act. But I guess when you have a film that's supposedly, this was written on Twitter, where the makers were writing back to back posts, going back and forth on Twitter, about wouldn't be cool with this, hey, would be cool with this, then we do this. So a movie based on a Twitter dialogue. Okay. Honestly, what it made me think of is there's a film that came out around this time called The Final Girls, which I liked a lot more than this. Now, granted, my problem with The Final Girls is rated PG-13. And you're trying to like talk about slasher films, but it's PG-13. I do get that, but I thought the story was more interesting about the lead character and the mom and what happened, and her mom was an actress in slasher films, and they'd go see a screening of her older films, and you have a little bit of last action hero elements and the movie within the movie, and I just thought that film was more clever, with a more interesting story, characters that had much more of an emotional hook and heart to it, and I found more creative as it went along. And that's a film I would say is underrated. And sadly, that's a film that went under the radar as well. Just to be fair, you never hear anyone talk about that movie as well. But this film, I could see why. That film, I think The Final Girls, despite the rating, is underrated. I think it has, again, enough creativity, good performances, a great bit heart on its sleeves, and some nice bits of style as well with the way it was directed, the way it was made. I don't think it petered out at the end. Now, again, the very, very end sets it up for the sequel as well, which I'm not big on, like this one. And obviously, it didn't do that well, too. So yeah, there's even more comparisons. They're both films that have sequel-bait endings, and more likely they didn't do well. That's why you didn't get a sequel. Because no one to pony up the money was interested in that. But again, I would rather have seen a Final Girl sequel than one to this. This one, like I said, it was an okay watch. Would I ever watch it again? Own it? No. I think Fran Kranz did a decent enough job looking worried and upset and scared and confused, and man, I'm a little bit feeling sorry for the character. Let's say Alyson Hannigan, I would say is my favorite part of the movie because I like the actress. Let's say the door was fine, it was okay, but you've seen a lot better. If you're fine with this plot structure, maybe you'll enjoy this more than me. Like I said, I don't hate the film, but it was okay. Could there be room of improvement for a sequel? Yes. Yes. Tell a more linear story. Maybe the guy's undead and he's got to go after the killer and get the mask and put it back in his rightful place. And Alyson Hannigan has to join him. And the two of them go on this road trip journey after this slasher that's just picking people off one by one. And people think he's the killer, he's an undead guy and a zombie. And maybe he's a lot of maybe time to play up of being undead. And everybody thinking you're the villain, the bad guy, but you're not. It's like, well, I did kill people, but not anymore. Or maybe something to that effect. So yeah, there could be improvement, but you never want to see a sequel, so it doesn't matter. So with that said, thanks for watching, take care, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye for now.